You're live, Doris.
Call to order the Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting for March 28th. The Board of Education makes available at least one current copy of the Open Meetings Act, which is posted on the west wall of the meeting room and accessible to members of the public. Just a reminder, if you'd like to speak, that you need to fill out a form and give it to me. I would also like to excuse John Zimmerman and Lisa Pieper tonight. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 approve the agenda as presented.
A second?
Second.
Your votes, please.
Aye.
First up this evening is a curriculum review, the English Language Arts Department. It's going to be Dr. Nielsen. This is right. Is it right? If I say it every possible way.
Good evening. We are excited to have these four individuals with us tonight, and I will let them do some introductions, but we have our two teachers, Mrs. Briggs and Mrs. Iverson, here to talk about the awesome opportunity that these two students have had. And one of the things that, as we looked at our strategic plan last week, the idea of creating compelling and innovative experiences for our kids, that is what these two individuals have done. And so they've done it not only for these two wonderful ladies, but also for their whole class. So I'm just going to turn it over to them because they are the show and I'm.
So I'll speak to just how we kind of developed our curriculum and what the big things we did. We got us new books by an author that won the 2017 Book of the Year award, really contemporary, and her book was stylistically really interesting, and they got to see a new type of book versus the books we usually read in English class. On top of that, we ended up going out to Homestead for a really cool immersive writing program where we spent the whole day there, and I think they really got in touch with their writing that day. So much fun. They said they wanted to go back. After that, we did a lot of creative writing prompts in class, and that is kind of where these guys got started with their poetry that was submitted, that was chosen by the Omaha Opera, which is super cool. And by the end, we ended up having so much content from the kids in the class that we went ahead and made the first Beatrice literary magazine with the published, all of their poetry, short stories, essays. So that was really cool. One thing that I wasn't expecting is, as an English teacher, I see kids like really work hard to make these formulaic papers, and it's tough. But after being in a semester of creative writing, I see them now in English class, a regular English class again, and it's so much smoother. So it did a lot for them, I think. But I want them to tell about the experience with the poetry.
I don't really know where to start. I'm Shelby Newcomb, and when my poetry got, won basically, right? Yeah, chosen. I didn't expect it. I really didn't think that my poetry would go anywhere, but it was really exciting. And so when we went to Omaha, well, she videoed, but I went and seeing how the composers actually turned our poems into music, and it was really amazing. I was like, wow. And
Okay, I'm Emily. Yeah, I had to Skype because I wasn't feeling very well, and they still kept me involved with everything, and I also wasn't very it was shocking when me and Shelby got hit.
listen.
Yeah, and listen, because it was you wouldn't expect someone from a smaller town to be.
Yeah, the composers were from Oregon and New York, and they flew in just for that day to work with us.
And now they want to move to Beatrice.
And I guess it was kind of just cool to see that you can think that you won't go somewhere, but then you can. And
Well, and establish your writing confidence. You guys were one of the lowest confident people in the class.
And you never thought that I never thought I'd be like a poet.
Same. I was and even me writing that poem, I was like, this isn't my best one. But then
She didn't even put it in the literary magazine.
no, I didn't.
She didn't have confidence.
Yeah. And then,
Yeah. But we'll tell them the process. So we submitted the poems, we got chosen, and they essentially, when they went to the Omaha Opera House, they sat behind, they called in a pianist, they had composers, and we had 3 people singing hers. And Shelby will have one person singing hers, it's off of the team for Emily. And they told them where they wanted to inflect words, where they wanted to draw out things, where they wanted to emphasize different ones. And Emily found hers from the poem that she submitted. It was actually from the Homestead Writing. So it's all intertwined within one another, and just the confidence that you see in them now. And they liked it. I mean, at the end, the literary magazine, they carried around, you know, not in my book bags, but it's confident. It's their confidence,
And they even asked you guys in every step, do you like this? What would you change here? So they were very,
They really wanted our input.
yeah.
And I'm not very good, like, I listen to music, but I don't,
Like classical.
yeah, I don't listen to classical or like opera music, so it was kind of cool to see that style of music be put to something that
We wrote.
yeah.
such a short poem. I mean, we Skyped in with them for 3 hours. And I called in Mr. Johnson and I called in Mr. Meyer, and they gave input because I don't know.
Yeah, we both did. We had no idea what they were talking about when they were like, how do you like this? And we're like, sounds fine.
So it was cool just to see the cross curricular.
And I felt like it was just a good experience to like put yourself out there and not be afraid to like,
I feel like it definitely made me more confident as a writer.
yeah. And I feel like also how Reich said in an English class, like after creative writing, like we have to write a lot of essays, and especially like practicing for the ACT, you come up with different ways to like put creative words into your essays and everything and make it your own.
Trevor was in it too. Sorry, I can't shout you out when you're just right there. And he was awesome in it as well.
Is there someplace that we can go and read the poetry?
The beat,
The baby has
it was in the beat
Okay.
this month, because Dr. Nielsen will tell you how excited I was, because I saw you at the cafe, and I came back, can you believe these?
Yeah.
I was really excited.
We're going to publish it, yes we are. Yeah.
I thought it was a very,
What a
very
cool
neat thing,
experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
We can't reveal the music, and like we have the
Until
music,
after.
but until after the 7th is when they perform. It's a free concert.
So you guys feeling up on the 7th? Fantastic.
And it's in August, is that what you said?
No,
April.
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 Yep,
7th?
April 7th.
And it's a free concert. And
Yes.
And the cool thing about it is it's like not, like, there's not a break in between each poem, it's like a cycle, so it goes from like one and then they'll introduce the other and then they'll start that one and
Like
like
they
it's
blend
just
the
an
songs.
ongoing thing.
Out of 70 applicants, there were only 9 chosen.
8, I thought.
Yeah,
You get 8.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, 2, yeah.
Yeah.
So when they were putting your poetry to music, did they ask you to, would it be all right to change something in there? Like, were they changing the wording or?
They didn't really change the words of ours.
They had already
Yeah.
composed before we had gone in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when they had asked us for them for input, all of it was put to music so they could see it beforehand. And then give more input as it went on through the workshop.
Can I ask who was out at Homestead when you were there? Sorry.
That's all right.
The only other school, it was just my creative writing class,
Okay.
plus all of Tri-County.
Yeah, all of Tri-Town.
And I think that was actually all the schools. There might have been a few.
I mean, did they bring somebody in?
There was a professor from UNL
Okay.
and a few other people who were part of the Nebraska writing program. And they did a great job. It was a really good experience.
My poem came from like the homestead. So then we went outside and like the guy was, I don't remember really what his name was, but he told us to close our eyes and like use our senses to like understand, like listen and hear everything around you. And I feel like that's how I got the idea for my poem, because it's kind of like a sensory thing.
Can I make a couple comments?
Yeah.
Can the audience do that or not? I first of all would like to thank, well, Doris, can I?
Yeah,
I'd like
He
to
needs to
thank
tell us who he
Mrs.
is.
Wright, Ms. Reichs and Mrs. Iverson. The creative writing class at the high school has been a class we've had in our repertoire, in our curriculum for quite a while. They've really broken down some barriers. They've invited kids to add that class as an English elective. They team teach it together, and it's really created this literary magazine that was discussed. It's really created a nice change in getting a variety of students into that creative writing class. So first of all, kudos to our teachers. Second of all, Shelby, when you said you didn't know you were a poet, I had to laugh because there's a phrase that says you're a poet and you didn't even know it. So congratulations, ladies. Thank you, Mr. Martin.
I'll get that paperwork to you later. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Next are Dr. Kristen and Mrs. Oldman with the Monsanto grant. Boo. You're booing me? I was booing her.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
She knows why I'm booing her.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You know me, I always have handouts.
I know when she walked in with a board and a thing. I expected it.
Carol and I had a lot of time to sit down
Yesterday.
yesterday when she was out turning some posters for me. I entitled this Makerspace Science because I can't separate the two, and besides I like pictures. So anyway, things have really changed a lot just since we got the Makerspace. On the front page there, you'll have to help me with the names because I couldn't tell you the spells.
That's Logan Berlin in a blue shirt.
Yeah, and I imagine you were doing something with a 3D printer.
Right, yeah, that was he was designing for the 3D printer. He's a senior, he's an engineering major, and he does amazing things with the 3D printer. He comes in and he draws out a calculus problem for me. Logan, I don't know what you're talking about. But he is doing just really creative things, and he's amazing.
Yeah.
So he's going into engineering. So this, what we have for him to learn and get him prepared is just awesome.
Yeah, and when he was in physics, he talked about that a lot. I just couldn't tell from the picture that he was.
Oh, yeah.
And he talked about wanting to be an engineer, and the opportunities that the kids have now is just leaps and bounds over what we were able to offer. And I think this is Laney.
It is Laney. It's just like the star tonight.
Yeah, there we go. And she's at a table, working with some programmable Legos. On the left side, this one right here, these three characters, they're in physics. And for years, I've had them do a roller coaster project where they have to do it on their own in groups. And they can design it any way they want, but they cannot use purchase things, like they can't use Connects, they can't use some of the other things that are available out there. I want them to think outside of the box. And this group approached me and they said, we really would like to use the 3D printer. Is that okay? And I said, sure, go ahead. And it was a great learning experience for them. They kind of shared, they also have to write a paper. And they shared some of their frustrations in there, like gluing their fingers together because they had to print it in pieces and then they had to figure out a way to join it together. But it was very well designed and they used AutoCAD to do that. And just incredible for high school kids to be able to do something, I think. This on the bottom is mushrooms. We were growing those in botany. And again, that's important too, because a lot of kids really have no idea about plants or fungus or anything like that. They don't know anything about it other than, oh yeah, those are in the grocery store. And so I threw that one in there because we had really good luck this year when we were growing that. This is Coy Burton, and he's kind of the
He's my technology aide, so.
yeah, technology aide for Carol. And what he's standing by is kind of a ginormous printer that was bought in part with, what was it, Makerspace, Science Club, and media funds. And tomorrow, there's going to be 16 kids going to compete at the Junior Academy of Science. And for the first year, we were able to print the posters, like most of the other schools do. And it was fun to watch them figure out how to make a scientific poster. This one is Evan Witolski, and he decided he wanted to make homemade rocket engines because he thought Estes was ripping people off by what they were charging. I think he changed his mind after doing this. He didn't get his homemade engines to work until 2 days ago, and he's been working on it all year. So posters are going up. We have some more pictures in there of some of the stuff that they have done. So that's been a huge asset. They've also printed a lot of different posters, you'll see here, that are around the school. And I just went around the school and picked out some that I thought were really cool, and there's a lot more of them. And this is Evan with his rocket, because at the time I didn't know I was bringing this. We didn't know if we'd have time. So anyway, dissection, that's always fun for the kids to go through. This on the bottom was from the makerspace, and as part of the makerspace, it is a chocolate 3D printer. And Ms. Walter's class is able to print out decorations for their chef class.
Pro-start classes.
Pro-start class. And then they can put these on their cakes or their pastries or whatever. And that was something that she had approached me about. Is this something we could do? I said, yeah, it's technology, it fits. She also has a second tower garden that I showed you the last time I was here. And I couldn't get the picture. It just kept saying arrow. So she resent it, still wouldn't work. But anyway, and it's about this tall, and it has little compartments in it, and they're able to grow fresh salad greens, herbs, things like that they're also using in their post-art class.
It's growing like crazy right now.
Yeah, it is. It's really fun to watch how fast it grows. This is one of my favorite pictures up here on the top. I like to challenge the kids to think. And if you look up here at the top, you see this little tiny target, black and white bullseye target. And over here out of sight, there's a device that will shoot or launch a ball. And when it launches, it causes this to drop at the same time. And they have to calculate what angle they're going to launch it in order to hit the target. And that's all I tell them. I said, no, you can't sight it up. And because they just want to take like a gun sight and just go down there and just kind of figure it out. I said, no, you have to calculate it. And I always tell them, it really freaks them out, I always tell them that I really like this lab because it's so easy to grade. If you hit the target, you get 100. If you don't, you get a 0. And they just, Maddie was also, I thought I was going to lose her. So anyway, and again, this goes back to the makerspace. We're trying to get them more interested in STEM things. And so it was really fun, and they hit the target, so they were happy. This is another roller coaster. This one was made out of wood, and it had the Tangled theme. And they told me that I couldn't grade it until I watched Tangled. Okay. This one over here, this is a project that's going. This is Stephen Powers, and he built his own marimba. That is what that is. And I didn't even know what a marimba was. I had no idea that it would be almost as long as this table and about this high when he was describing it to me. He told me tonight, as we were trying to get his poster printed, he told me, he said, I figured out my hours. I have over 220 hours in this project. he cut all of the pipes, he had to figure out how to make the tone and everything compare to a purchased one. And then on top of that, I said, okay, Stephen, there's no way we're taking this competition. And so he made a miniature model of it so that he could take it and show it tomorrow. I was just amazed. On the bottom here, we have some kids working out in the greenhouse, as they always do. Here's some more physics kids. They're doing a momentum study. And then on the back page, I thought this was a fitting way to close this. Hillary Fisher came to see me, I don't know, it was over spring break. And she is at the University of Arkansas within 1 year of getting her PhD in anthropology, which is great. But she talked about how the things that she learned at Beatrice High School, she was so advanced to the other kids in her class as far as experimentation and things like that, and that she was just really pleased with everything. This over here is Dylan George, and he is at both of these, well, all three of these actually, went and competed at the same place we're going tomorrow. Dylan is at Peru, and he's going to research into health and medicine. And he already, as a freshman, let's see, he's sophomore?
I can try.
Yeah, I do too. He's either a sophomore or this is his junior year, I can't remember. But he, as a freshman, was one of 3 people chosen to do research at the University of Nebraska Omaha Med Center. And he credits it all to taking special topics. And here was a case of a kid that went to nationals twice with her project. And here was a kid that didn't even make it past regionals. He didn't get to go to state. He got robbed, but that's okay. But yeah, it inspired him to go and search out research opportunities. Since then, he's done internships at South Dakota, and I know he's going to be successful because he brought his poster this last time, and when I can't understand what they're doing, I figure, okay, they're on the right track. And finally, we have Jeff Sullinger, and he just came a while back. Jeff built a wind tunnel for his project, and again, he went to state, but he didn't go to nationals. But he also was able to turn a $10,000 scholarship offer into a $40,000 scholarship offer from his project at Embry-Riddle in Arizona, where he's going to be an aeronautical engineer. So I kind of wanted to put these in here because the things that we do at Beatrice High School do impact our students a lot. And I think it's important to remember that, especially on days like today. But it's been a wild day. So anyway, this is probably going to be my final makerspace report. As you know, I'm going to retire this year. But I will also leave you with, I did go ahead and write another Monsanto grant that we'll find out in May if we got or not. And the plan is to set up a system that we can actually do coding and programming and have a class where kids can do that. It's the way of the future. Technology is here. Paula Hines got a scholarship and, well, I guess it was a grant to teach the class, and it provides her with curriculum, and she's excited because she has taught this sort of thing before. And hopefully we'll be able to have a system where they'll be able to have double monitors because they tell me this is a necessity when you're doing coding. Another thing I don't know a lot about. But just the quality of projects. I had a student that built his own robot that would go autonomously through the maze. Another one was making a small-scale cellular network, and I'm really lost when he talks. That's Chase Barber. Grant Meyer was the one that did the robot, and it's just so fun to watch their engagement and their interest. And back to this picture over here. they were trying to figure out how they were gonna figure out the angle, and it's really a very simple process. If they just got the thing. And, they were really engaged in debating how they were gonna do this. Because they can choose, they can either do it on their own, or they can do it as a group, or they can do it as small groups. And here lately, they've been wanting to do it as a group. And I said, okay, but I'm gonna pick one person that's going to have to explain what you're doing. So they had to make sure that everybody knew. So, anything more?
Any questions?
Yeah, any questions that you have?
I would say, one of the things that I just thank both of you for the commitment, what you've done, what opportunities you provide our kids, because really, I would say our kids are provided with top-notch opportunities 100% of the time. And I think it's because we have people that are dedicated, who want to write the grants, who want to seek out the funding, because we know that our district can't always provide the funding. So we have to go seek it out on our own. And we're very excited about this. We're also very excited about how we're building K-8 so that when they get there, they are ready to start moving into those special topics classes and have that thinking, because it does take a little bit of a different thinking.
Yes, it does.
And so we are excited about that. 8th grade, or well, at our middle school, we have an aquaponics lab, which we're, all of these things help build to what the high school offers. And so very excited about all the things, but it comes from grants. And, we are just happy and thankful that people are committed and they write grants, and we are going to miss Dr. Kristen next year, and yes, wish you the best, but yes, we're going to miss you. So maybe she'll just have to come back and offer some for,
Do some grant
after,
writing.
yeah, just grant writing for us after 180 days, so.
Yeah.
No.
The other thing I forgot to mention was the laser engraver. I didn't have any pictures of that, but we have a laser engraver. It was in the library, but we had to move it to the shop because it probably would set off the
Creating
smoke
smoke.
alarm. But Chuck Brockman helped with that, and that's pretty exciting. And also, I think most of you know Glenn and Eileen Heidemann. Mr. Suter told me that he was my high school superintendent. He's still Mr. Heidemann to me, even though. But anyway, he says, Glenn Heidemann called and said they have some rocks they want to donate. And I said, okay. And he said, so you need to go check that out. Okay. So I went, and what it is, it's a geological collection of Elaine's father, who has passed away. And they've had it in their house, and they decided, there's a better use for this. And so they donated all of the rocks to Beatrice High School. And I purchased a cabinet that they tell me they're gonna put up next Wednesday, hopefully. And that will be on display for kids in the earth science classes to use. So we're excited about that too.
When she mentioned the laser engraver, I just wanted to emphasize that when we get those new tools, there's a huge learning curve to this stuff. And I get kids started, but I have technology aides, and I'm gonna say Lainey's one of them. She does a lot of technology for me. But I show them the program, I show them some YouTubes that they need to watch, some tutorials, I give them the manuals, and I say, you guys need to figure this out. You guys, I don't know how to do this, you need to figure it out for me. And then I help them get going, but they really take ownership and pride when they get it figured out. And so Coy, who's in here, and Logan Glenn, they love running down to Brockman's room to use the laser printer, and they come back and they show me, and sometimes we have fails and sometimes we have successes, and so, but it's just the excitement that they have when they figure something out is just totally what we're
Yeah.
here for.
Another thing that I forgot
We're
about.
gonna talk all night.
Another thing
Not to
was,
worry.
another thing was, with the last grant, we got some smaller grants too. And so we were able to buy some things with those that originally was gonna be in the Monsanto grant. So we were able to switch over, and we got a classroom set of VEX robotics, which the kids tell me is the robot to have. And the only problem was, I had these kids all excited about it, and this was about the time the China embargo went on, and they couldn't get it to us, because they couldn't get it shipped in. But we did finally receive that. I think the guy got really tired of me. Every week I just started emailing, okay, where are we at? But we're really excited about this. We're gonna take the physics kids down after we get past this stuff and have them explore with that. And eventually, I hope they'll wanna have robotic competitions. And I think this would be a good step. So it's, just to give you an idea, it's $7,000 worth of robotics. So the Monsanto grant is $10,000. So we were able to come up with funds. Dave gave us some for some of the stuff that we were doing, and Carol donated some, and I donated some from different places.
And we also have to thank the Ed Foundation, just give them
Yes.
a shout out too.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
For supporting it.
So, unless you have some more questions, I'm done.
Thank you for
Thank you
being
very
a
much.
teacher.
Good luck tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they're going to compete.
And where's that competition at?
It's at the University of Nebraska East Campus. And this is a new venue. Before it was at Nebraska Wesleyan. And they got UNL involved, and you know, it showcases the school, which is good for the kids that are going there, but it's also kind of the idea that you're seeing what's available too. And they have tours arranged for the kids and everything like that. So I'm excited to see how it's gonna work out. So.
Are these mushrooms edible?
Yep, and they're ready to eat.
Are they?
I'm just interested in the chocolate 3D printer.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, Coy did not mind learning how to use that. He had lots of fails. And darn, I have to eat that.
And I have to apologize, I'm not gonna stay because I have to get back to school and do some stuff, finish with kids yet for tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you
You
very
are
much.
kind of missed the deadline.
Next, we're gonna talk about the E-rate auction, Mr. Cook.
Conference. Oh, yeah, it's real nice.
Well, it's a good thing we do have people that are willing to search out these grants and are very skilled at getting them, because we don't have that kind of money anymore. As you all know, we used to get $100,000 from the state, well, not from the state, but they allowed us to levy, whatever your levy took to get $100,000 for technology for purchasing this type of equipment, and they took that away last year. So this is our first year that we have not had that, and we have not been able to go out and purchase these kind of things, which is what we were primarily using that money for in the past. So we don't have that anymore. But that's not what I'm here to talk about tonight. I think you all received this from Jason, and I don't know how much information you had besides that. And I think tonight is just to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what it is, and then you can think about it up to the next board meeting. But the federal government has Universal Service Fund, or E-rate as it's called. We've been using that for several years. They provide funding for internet access. They used to provide it for telephone service, but they took that away. There's a lot of technology-related items that you can apply for E-rate for, and you get reimbursed. In our case, we used to be at 70%, now we're at 80% reimbursement. A couple of years ago, that was all Category 1. A couple of years ago, they came up with what they termed Category 2, and which is what's on your sheet here. Category 2 has to be used just for network infrastructure. It can be used for wiring in your buildings, or between your buildings, or fiber optic connections, or network switches, or Wi-Fi, those kind of things. But it can only be used for that. It can't be used for internet access or the things that Category 1 can be used for. And how they arrive at these numbers is they take all of your buildings and they use a calculation based on your free and reduced lunch population, and they assign a dollar value to each building. And you can then use that money to purchase this kind of equipment, again at 80% reimbursement. So what we have here is that right now, Beatrice Public Schools is eligible for right at $178,000 of E-rate funding. And as Jason has indicated on here, if we were to spend all $178,000 of that, we would get $142,000 reimbursed, leaving $35,600 that the district would have to pay for. That's the total amount. What we're talking about doing, I won't say so far as proposing, but just what we're looking at possibly spending the money on is the three items that are on the table here. And it doesn't have to, you wouldn't have to do all three, you could do one, two, or all three of them. But the first one that's on the list is Wi-Fi access points. The Wi-Fi access points that we currently have were installed in the summer of 2015, so they're about 4 years old. The switches that are on here are network switches. Currently, the switches that we have were installed in 2013, so they're 6 years old. And then the rack and the standby power are just some things that we talked about that'd be nice to have in some of the buildings. They don't really, well, other than standby power is nice when the electricity goes off, but they're not things that really affect the day-to-day operation of our network. The access points, there's nothing wrong with the access points that we have now. They're working fine, but new access points are new. I mean, they're better technology, better speed, better coverage, but it's not like we have to have them. It's not like that what we have is expired or no longer serviceable or needs to be replaced. Kind of the same way with the switches. The switches are what we have now, they're working fine, but they're 6 years old. At some point, they're going to reach their end of life coverage from the manufacturer, so that they'll no longer be able to purchase warranty on them. And if they would fail at that time, then you would be forced to go out and buy new switches at full price. But what we've proposed here is, as you can see from the numbers, the total cost for the access points would be just over $30,000. The total cost for the switches would be $108,000. The rack and standby power is $7,600. But there is a couple of rubs here. The middle school, or the preschool, the old Cedar building, is not eligible for any of this because this only applies to K-12. So because it's preschool, it's not eligible. The admin building is the same way as far as access points go. It's not eligible because it's not K-12 instruction. It is partially eligible for like the network switches, because we have equipment in this building that provides service to the rest of the district. So it becomes partially eligible. The middle school is a totally different animal in this, because we already spent some of that money. A couple of years ago, we replaced all the fiber optic connections between this building and the middle school, and then all of the network closets that are in the middle school. So we spent a bunch of the Category 2 money that was assigned to the middle school. So if we were going to do these projects, particularly the access points, we would have to spend $15,901 roughly to buy access points for the middle school and the admin building and the old Cedar building preschool. Because while it would be possible to mix the old and the new access points, it's not a very good idea. It could potentially cause some issues. So if you were going to do the access point portion of it, you would want to purchase the extra access points, and it would be at the full price because there's no discount available for that. So if you were to do all these projects, all three of these projects, the total cost to the district would be in the neighborhood of $45,106, as he's indicated here. Now, that's just to purchase the equipment. There is no installation costs incurred or proposed in this request for funding from the Universal Service Fund. So that's the second part of the table, in that the installation costs for the access points and installation costs for the switches, and I would have to note there that $15,000 is an estimate. That would probably be the minimum cost. It could be more than that. But if you then go down to the bottom table, you've got the costs from up above, the table up above, the access points of $21,971, with the installation figured at $33.75 for a total of $25,346. Same with the switches, that you got the before installation costs from up above, the estimated cost of $15,000 for installation, for a total of $3,600. And then for the racks and the standby power, that's just the 20% from up above, for a grand total of $63,490. Now, Jason and I have talked about this a little bit. I think what he's looking at is that if you decide this is something that we should do, that I think he's looking at depreciation fund for coming up with the money for this. I'm not here tonight. I'm here tonight to answer questions if you have any, but I think whether or not you want to discuss it further is probably something for a regular board meeting when you've had time to maybe visit with him or get more information on it. But I would answer any questions that you would have now.
So Dave, with the current both Wi-Fi and switches, are we at any security risks with the age of those and so forth?
I don't believe that we are, because what we have now is not that old. I mean, there were security problems at the time. Security problems existed at the time these were purchased. They're all 802.1 compliant. We're always up to date with all of our patches and firmware updates and everything. So no, I don't think we're at risk of any kind of security issues, data breaches, anything like that.
And then second question on installation, is this something that staff can install Wi-Fi point, data access points and so forth internally, or is this definitely something we have to outsource?
We were looking at outsourcing it because, number one, you'd have to do them all at once. You'd have to do them in a relative, over the summer, pretty obviously. And you're gonna want them done in as short a time as possible, because when you're gonna have to shut the old system down and replace the access points on the new system. So anymore, summers are awful short. Summer school takes up the entire month of June, and we have people back here before the 1st of August. So it's a really short time frame that it has to be done. It is possible that like the access points, you might be able to do some of that with in-house, except that the last time when we did the current access points, and this goes back to our old elementary buildings, if you've ever noticed, if you've been in those buildings and noticed, the ceilings in there are nothing but a 1/4 inch of pressed fiberboard glued to concrete. The company that installed the access points now, they cuss daily over that, because it's almost impossible to get anything to attach to that. And it's not something I'd want to do, let's put it that way. It is possible, but given the amount of work that's involved and the time frame that we would want it done, I would think that's why we were looking at contracting somebody to do it.
What is the normal lifespan of access points and switches? Is it 10 years, 15? You know, how long are these going to be good?
These are, unless there is some new protocol that comes out, and as far as I know, there's nothing on the horizon or anything that would make this equipment obsolete. Now, yes, you're gonna get to the point where if you're starting, if you have a curriculum area that wants to, that every day they're gonna be downloading videos to 50 or 60 Chromebooks. then you're gonna run into bandwidth issues. And then you might wanna seriously consider having different access points, and possibly even different switches. The switches that we have, when we purchased those, they were way above what we needed for a public school district. Now they're probably more along the line of the normal. The new switches that we proposed in here are the same manufacturer as our firewall is, and according to the manufacturer, of course, they integrate. Excuse me, I thought I had that turned down. Yes, I do. But their claim is that they will integrate together. You'll have more secure, or a more secure network, because the switches actually talk to the firewall and vice versa, for any, what I guess could be perceived as threats in the future. Because, you read about it every day in the paper. That's one of the biggest issues out there right now, is cyber threats. I personally don't think that a public school district is where they're gonna be looking at to try and hack into. But there is, there is a possibility that with student data that there are, there's social security numbers in there, and there's medical records and those kind of things. So I wouldn't say that we're immune to it, but I wouldn't think that we're high on the list of something that somebody's gonna be looking for either.
Do we have any bandwidth issues at any of the schools? I'm gonna look at Mr. Suter specifically at the high school, and Mrs. Oltman, with all the new equipment that, we're bringing in, has it been a struggle for students because of bandwidth?
Not recently, no. Initially, when we first went to Wi-Fi or wireless internet in our school, we were running into problems.
Well, when we first put in Wi-Fi, we did it it was more the idea to bring the access into the building. Then as it progressed and we started, Chromebooks came along, and Chromebooks were the answer to just about everybody's prayer. We bought more and more and more Chromebooks, so then it became an issue. And that's when we went back and we put an access point in every classroom. And we added more to the gym, more to the commons area, more to the Evelyn Center. Currently, in our district, there is an access point in literally every room in the district, or more than one in some cases. So I don't think, next week we'll be doing testing. We'll have 2,000 Chromebooks running at once on some days with testing. And I don't know, in the past anyway, we've not had bandwidth issues.
You having problems, Mrs. Oltman?
No, no.
We're still discouraged from streaming music and those kinds of things. It just are a pretty big drain, but overall, no problems. Right, Dave?
Movies.
E-rate funding, is this going away? Is this here for, can we use it for years, or what about?
Well, it's on a year, they won't commit to future years. The first year, they said this might be the only year. Last year, they said this might be the only year. This year, they're saying it's still here, but it might be there's no guarantee that it'll be here again next year, but it could be. It could be here every year for the next 5 years. There is no guarantee. It's not.
So maybe you answered this, but who is they?
This is a federal government program. If you look at your cable bill, your telephone bill, you'll see an item that says Universal Service Fund on it.
Okay.
You're paying, every person that subscribes to any of those kind of things is paying a little bit every month, and it goes into that fund, and that's what they use to reimburse all these expenses.
Okay, great, thank you.
And one other question, when does the manufacturer warranty expire, like on switches, how long is that, or access points?
Well, the switches that we currently have a lifetime warranty.
And what is, lifetime warranty?
Lifetime warranty for replacement. Now, that does not, we still purchase support agreements every year, so that if we need their assistance in troubleshooting the problem. But now, when they do reach what they call end-of-life support, then you would not be able to get them replaced, but they haven't announced end-of-life for the switches that we currently have yet.
points, do they have a?
Access points, really, they're to the point, they're again, they're relatively cheap. You can constantly purchase them. As long as you purchase the same brand, they integrate well with the system that we have. Now, if for some reason someday they would stop making the extreme access points that we have, then you'd have to look for something else. But that's not a concern that I would think. It's not a reason to do this because you think they're gonna be gone next year, or they could be gone in the near future. Because I realize how tight money is, and with the loss of the $100,000 from the technology bond, plus, and if you recall or not, the technology budget got cut $50,000 last year. So far, I haven't been told that it's gonna get $50,000 is gonna get put back in there. So I doubt that it is. We have not been able to do, as Mrs. Altman will attest, we have not been able to do near the kind of stuff this year that we've done in the past. The budget that we have now is basically a subsistence budget. We replace what needs to be replaced, but we're not buying anything new. That's why the grant is so important.
Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, this will be, I'm sure, is on the agenda then for the regular board meeting coming up in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Steve.
One quick question, when do you have to have a decision to apply for that money? Is it
We've already put in we did the application.
whether you accept it or not?
Right, we don't have to accept, we can not proceed with the funding, and basically there's no penalty, nothing at all. We filled out all the paperwork just in case.
Mr. Suter will now talk to us about the graduation dress code.
Didn't want to speak from the back when Mrs. Altman and Dr. Christen were presenting, but kudos to those two staff members also for continuing, even though we're lacking funds in some areas, to continue to push our high school technology. If you, Dr. Christen, obviously with her retirement, you stop and look back at her 16 or 17 years at the high school, has written so many grants. Those dollar amounts probably total over $120,000 with the greenhouse and the different things that she's done. So we're gonna miss that. We're gonna keep, moving forward, but she's done a wonderful job, and kudos to Mrs. Altman. She was presenting today at NETA, which is the Nebraska State Technology Conference. So we're setting ourselves up for some great things with our technology we provide to our students and our staff. So wanted to make those comments. What I'd like to visit with you tonight, do you have a copy? They have copies?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk to you about Administrative Regulation 5225, which talks about graduation dress code. I've been the principal 17 years. We've taken on a great amount of pride in the way we do graduation, the way our graduation runs, the length of time that we take for graduation, and the speaking and the things that take place. I have always just talked to our students about what has been, or what we would consider appropriate dress for our graduation. And our kids have done a great job filling those expectations. Last fall, I was asked by Mark Baumfalk to consider a request that his family and he were making to allow his daughter, Lainey, who will be a senior here, is a senior and will be graduating in May, to wear a stall that would represent her citizenship in the Potawatomi Nation. And at the time, we had a good conversation. We listened. We talked about what that meant to her and her family, what it means to the Potawatomi Nation when a student goes through a graduation ceremony of such. And so what we did was we agreed to look into it some more and to delve into what that would look like and what that could possibly mean and what that would, if the school would be interested in doing something like that. looking back at it, what it allowed us to do is actually kind of go back and look at our graduation dress. And instead of it being just me as the principal telling our students, this is what you should wear for your graduation dress, and to actually put a focus on that. And so this administrative regulation has served a couple of different purposes. First of all, if you've got a copy, it talks about that it's a privilege and it's subject to academic attainment. All the students have to acquire the credits they need to go through the graduation ceremony at the high school. Part A talks about what students should wear under their gown. We traditionally have worn black gowns and black hats with orange accent pieces to that, representing our school colors. And letter A talks about how that, as administration, we will still continue to have expectations for what students wear under their gown for graduation. Letter B talks about how students will wear their graduating cap. And in great detail, it talks about how they'll wear that, how that should look, that they are not going to be allowed and have not been allowed to decorate the top of their hat at graduation with anything on that. Letter C talks about the tassel, letter D talks about honor cords, and letter E talks about a stole and recognition of honors. Those of you that are familiar with our graduation ceremony know our kids do wear cords. It's National Honor Society provides cords for those students that have qualified for National Honor Society. Any of our students that have a 3.5 grade point average or higher are issued an honor medallion, which is a bright orange lanyard with a nice medal on that. And so we do have those things in place with what we've traditionally done with our graduation. What Rex Schultz, our school attorney, and I talked a lot about after I contacted him after visiting with Mr. Baumfalk about their request and the recognition of Laney as a Potawatomi Nation Native American, was that in our country, students that are, or people that are of Native American descent and can, I guess, prove that descent are actually, as Rex would say, are actually citizens that have dual citizenship. They are both United States of America citizen, and they're also recognized as a citizen within their nation, their Native American nation. When I told Rex Schultz that Jason Alexander and I had talked about this, and we thought that if there was some way that we could assist in this wearing of this stole as almost a rite of passage, or that because of the significance that this graduation ceremony for our school has for the Native American tribes, we were able to kind of come up with letter F, and we would like to propose that to the board tonight. And it basically says that we recognize the historical significance of Native American nations within the boundaries of the United States and the state of Nebraska. We recognize and honor the cultural heritage of membership in such nations and tribes in which our students are a member. And so what we've outlined for you tonight in the administrative regulation is that what we would like to propose is to allow students to wear a stole, the stole that would be added to our graduation in May, and there are some requirements that go with that. And number one talks about how people may wear a traditional tribal regalia as recognized as a religious or cultural significance as an adornment at our ceremony. They have to still know that I will, or the administration will still have the ability to approve or disallow the request of what they're asking to wear. In this case, the stole has been requested, and we feel that based on how that's been described and shown to us through pictures, that would be appropriate. It would not be a huge distraction to our graduation ceremony. It would be something that would mean a tremendous amount to Laney and her family. Letter number 2 there, a student wishing to wear an adornment who would recognize their Native American heritage would have to inform the administration that they want to do that they would need to present evidence of that Native American nation or tribal membership, and they would have to show us how it would be worn, and then we could approve that. It also talks about how we have to have a notification of this being requested prior to the graduation. This isn't something we want to try to work through, days before graduation. And Mr. Baumfalk has done a very nice job of bringing this to our school's attention prior to. Having talked to Rex, a couple things I think you as a board need to know. If we allow this, will there be concern, or will there be possibly someone else asking, well, can they wear something else? One of the things that Rex and I and Jason feel confident in is this is a very narrow focus. This is for our students that have Native American heritage and culture and are able to prove that to us and be allowed to wear that approved stole or whatever regalia they would want to wear. We feel that it would pass muster and stand up, and we would still have the ability to disallow anything that did not represent or be part of what our school district would acknowledge as appropriate or with our expectations. So that's what I wanted to bring to you tonight. I'm open to questions if you have any. I personally feel that this was brought to me in a respectful manner with enough time to work through what we could do, to have our school attorney be involved and to hear him say, I think this would be a good thing, and we can put it into a policy or administrative regulation that actually narrows and takes what you've been telling people for years into a document, into a policy or into a regulation, and give yourself the ability to make some determinations on anything that would come across that would be special or different. And so I guess I'm, as a principal, saying to you as the board, I'm willing, and I think this is the right thing to do. I think this is something that we could do, and we could still maintain our graduation ceremony to the highest degree, as I know board members would expect us to, and I think it's the right thing to do.
One question, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Jason, I don't oppose this whatsoever, but I think under number 2, is no less than 1 week enough time for you to address these? And like you just said, the Baumfalk family brought this to your attention with plenty of time, so we had time to work through this, but if something else comes up 1 week, that doesn't seem like a lot of time.
Right, that would be maybe something that we could look at. I think that, I guess as Rex and I were putting this together, we felt that was an appropriate time.
That's more up to you. I think
I think what I've seen over the years, if there's gonna be anything that gets brought up, it'll get brought up before 1 week out. But, I do appreciate that. I think we could, I don't know what the appropriate time would be, 1 month possibly, or during the first semester of the year, would be something else, but, I guess I don't know about making that change, with that.
I guess I would just say.
I agree with you. I looked at 1 week and I thought, boy, that does not give you much time, and that's a really busy time of the year for you.
And especially if it's something that's maybe outside of this policy that you guys are thinking about, and yeah, I think this makes sense. Do we then need to bring it to us for approval of this regulation? That's probably not enough time.
I would agree.
That's my way of thinking on that.
I think those are good points, and I do think, sitting here thinking through it quickly, that the more time we have, the better, and especially if there's something that we either want to approve or disapprove, but we also would want to bring to the board to make sure you're aware of it. So maybe it's, are we able to make changes to this before it's not?
And I'm not saying we're wanting to micromanage this, but I can just see some other situation may come up that you feel that it's important enough to bring towards the board that 1 week is not enough.
Because it's a regulation, it just needs kind of an approval, a blessing. I mean, it does not need the official 3 readings.
3 readings through the
No.
board and, yeah.
So it just needs, okay, we are good with adding this piece in, and it goes in, and we can make modifications.
So typically our graduations are mid-May, so if we said 1 month ahead of time, that would still give me the May board meeting or the April committee of the whole to bring it to your attention. So I guess I would move that we change the number 2, that shall be brought to our attention no less than 1 week prior to the graduation ceremony, to strike 1 week and put in there 1 month.
Perfect. Done.
That'd be a good change.
Again, I think that just protects you a little bit too from the deliberate.
right there.
Are you okay? Laney's asked to address the board about this topic. You wanna come forward?
Sure, and I do have a picture of what Mark, yeah, that would be even better.
Uh-huh.
Picture's worth 1,000 words,
Yes.
right? Or the actual one.
This is Lainey Baumfox, she's a senior at Beatrice High School.
That's great.
Would you want to share with the board what some of the significance is?
This right here is our seal. So all it says is there's a fire and it's under it says initiative, which if I remember right, it stands for like family. And around it in red it says Great Seal of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. And under it says people, the place of the fire. And then we have feathers on each side and like wooden, not a tomahawk. I mean this one's a tomahawk, but
Peace pipe and tomahawk.
yeah, that. I don't know what it's called. And then,
This navi means the people.
yeah, the people, and then these are just big flowers.
So those of you again that have been in our graduation ceremony, this is something that I don't think will distract from our ceremony. I think it's very worthy of giving her that opportunity to do that. And we can address this in future requests in the future by case, but the way this is worded, it's gonna need to fit within that Native American, that it narrows that focus. So,
I agree, that's very nice.
Can you tell me why it's important to you to do this?
I've always, every summer we have a family festival in Oklahoma in Shawnee. Last year we just attended and it's, they honor certain families every year, and last year our family was honored. And it's kind of just, you get to see like the background of it. So they have your powwows, which is the older that has more Indian in them. They wear their regalia and they go in a circle and they kind of, not really march, but dance in a circle. And then you have, like in the center, you have and it's an arena, you have people dancing around in a circle, and then there's a smaller circle of people, like older people with drums. And it's like old skin that's dried, and then you just pound on those and sing. Kind of like
wearing this at graduation, what does that mean for you or for your family?
It just means to me a lot. Just it represents who I am, and I'm proud to be a Potawatomi. I appreciate them for also giving, and when you're down there, you just feel at home. You don't feel like you're just a visitor. Everyone's welcoming. You don't have to worry about anything.
Thank you.
Any other questions, folks, for myself or for Laney?
I have one for you.
Yes.
What would you do if Elizabeth Warren came along?
Thank you. Moving right along.
Yeah, okay, we'll move on.
All right, thank you, folks.
Anybody else want to speak?
Yeah, I want another half hour.
That'd be a no. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that the Board of Education of District 15 adjourn.
A second?
Yeah.
Your votes, please.
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Adjourn.